Dexter is the, fallen angel,
Okay.
I was like, ooh, man. But I had like actually no expectation about Chris. I knew he was a sharp player, but I never knew he had that inside him, like, man, such a gift from Angel, man.
But
I want to kiss his forehead now.
All right. So I'm here with Erkast, who is a Mongolian CS player. He's the captain of the team called Tiger at the moment. You might know him, obviously, formerly competing in a team called Greyhound from the ANZ region. He's a big fan of Woolies chicken. His former teammates might describe him as Snake Erkast, and he's currently competing in PAL Summer 2020, which is the second Asian RMR tournament. So we're going to talk all about this, Erkast, of course, but I want to go back and start where all of it sort of began, right? Now, obviously, you're in Mongolia right now, but you've been to Australia in the meanwhile. So let's talk about before you even moved to Australia for the first time. What was it like for you in Mongolia? Were you playing a lot of Counter-Strike there, or were you playing in a competitive team or anything like that?
Yeah, back in Mongolia, like I used to play CS a lot. I started CS:GO like 2013, and before then I was playing just 1.6, but 1.6 was just like a casual game for me, like just playing like 15 versus 15, like the public matches and stuff. And then later, like I started competing a little bit back in CS 1.6, and then I got CS:GO, and then I was just like smashing matchmaking. There was the first tournament, and then yeah, unexpectedly, like we like recruited the new team, like CS:GO team. Like for example, we had double in our team, and then that was like back in 2014 or something. We started winning against Machine Gun Zilkenberg, and those two guys were like the best players in Mongolia, even in 1.6. So we had an expectation in CS:GO that they're gonna be the best anyway. So and then yeah, we just started winning, and then that's how I got in CS:GO.
Right.
Pretty
So
much.
you were already playing like competitive CS in
Yeah,
Mongolia
yeah.
before you moved to Australia, which sort of then leads into my next kind of questioning and how this all sort of comes about. Now, obviously, you moved to Australia very shortly after this sort of period, right? Like maybe late sort of 2015, I think, was around the time when you started to come to Australia. As I understand, that was for university, but I don't necessarily think that that's so relevant for all the people that are watching. I think what people are interested in hearing about is sort of like how this sort of impacted your CS career, because you were playing CS already, but once you came to Australia is kind of where things really kicked off. So how did you kind of go about joining a CS team here in Australia? Like, did you already know people in Australia, or did you make a forum thread or something?
My initial like plan was not to play CS at all, because like Asian parents, right? Like back in Mongolia, I was also in university, and then I was just like skipping classes, going to a net cafe, and then playing like LAN against people, and they were not happy about it, and they told me that okay, I think also my girlfriend were about to leave to Australia as well, and they told me like if she's going to Australia, you have to go to as well, and then you like make a living, and then like try to make an adult life, just don't be at home and skip your uni and just play in net cafe. Try to learn something, try to get a part-time job, be more independent and stuff. And then that was my initial plan, right? Just move with my girlfriend and then stay there for a while I'm studying. And then like I don't know, like back then, like CS was so cool, like you had so much streams, like all of in Pasha, and then it was just like everything was rising. And then I was just so passionate. I was still watching games a lot. I was watching streams a lot, and then I started to watch like Australian Counter-Strike as well, because I was in Australia. And then like some reason I found like cybergamer.com, and there was like that was like that time Cybergamer was really active. And then I saw a thread that I think it was from Straxmores or Stitch. They were looking for one player, right, for Sydney LAN. I can't remember the name of the LAN, but it was LAN in Sydney, and yeah, they were just looking for +1. And I was just actually like just begging them, like, please let me play. I want to play so badly. I used to play in 1.6. I used to play CS:GO back in Mongolia. I'm so good. Trust me, guys.
So did
Something
you
like
did
that.
you think that you were like better than a lot of the average Australian players? Because like the team that you joined there, right? And I presume you're talking about the one with Gotz, Pili, Siege, and Strax. Was, I guess, at the time a reasonable team, but they were never like a top tier team. So where did you think you sort of sat in terms of a skill level compared
actually
to
like
these
my
players?
expectation was like really low for me, to be honest, because like back then before the tournament I actually went to, there was some land in Macquarie University. I can't remember the name.
Was it an ACL LAN?
ACL land or something like that. It was like the finalist was Vox and
Yeah, this was ACL Sydney then.
Immunity. Yeah, and Sponge was interviewing with Sniper and stuff. I went to that line, and then I don't know. I just wanted to go. I used to live in Waterloo, right? And that was like me first time traveling so far to Macquarie University just to see a land. And then yeah, I just like I saw so many other teams as well, like XL5. Oh, I can't remember the
Direwolves would
name.
have been there.
Direwolves, yeah, that one.
Avan,
And then I was like,
the team.
yeah. So my expectation was, okay, these guys are really good. So I don't know. I had no expectation about like Division 2 anything. So I just went there. I didn't think any one of them was good, better than me, or they're like bad than me, worse than me. I just had no expectation. I just wanted to prove that I'm like a good player, you know.
But you've told me in previous discussions that we've had that you did learn a fair bit from Gotz and Pili, right? So was it sort of a bit of an awakening for you as far as CS and your mindset was concerned joining this team?
Yeah, before Gotz and Pili, we had, was it? Yeah, I swear I had played with some other players before Gotz and Pili, but with Gotz and Pili, I think that was my actual like first team. And then playing with them, like actually learned a lot of stuff. Like I saw CS:GO from like different perspective, because like in the small situations they were like communicating a lot. Okay, you flash me there, I'm gonna go there. Let's like double peek and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, these guys are so detailed. Like, hey, man, this is like good way to play CS for me. So that's really big part I learned from them.
All right, so let's move on from this period, because obviously for you, this team that you're talking about currently wasn't a massive sort of major deal as far as your career is concerned. I think for me, the first team that I sort of noticed you in and really sort of took a bit of notice of you was this Corvidae roster that you played in. Now, if you remember, this was a roster that has gone on to produce many of the great Australian players that we have currently competing at the top of the scene. Siege was someone who I believe has gone on to play professional Quake internationally, so even he has had quite some success in esports. But you played with Ins, who at the time was called Incense, Gratisfaction, Alistair, and then of course you sort of rounded out that roster. So was this sort of a team kind of formed before it joined Corvidae? I believe you mentioned something about Climax. As far as I remember, the Corvidae organization was very excited or kind of hyping you guys up and that kind of thing. But it seems like the team was already formed before Corvidae was even in the discussion.
Yeah, after Gotz and Pili left, it was just like Stitch and I. And then we were talking. I was like really close friends with Stitch, and then his brother was the owner of Corvidae as well, Nathan. And we were just talking, and then I told him like, okay, let's create a new team. Let's get some young players. You know, there's so many good players out there, and I just remember one thing from Alistair, and then Ali was like substitute in Division 2 team, right? And then he was like really cocky. Like, yeah, I'm sub for Div 2 team. Let me think about it. Okay, I guess I'll join. Ins was, I think, like back then, like everyone was just everyone was thinking Ins was cheater or something.
I remember this, yeah. And at some point, I'm going to do an in retrospect with Ins one day, and I will talk to him about that. But I recall him being banned on CG, I think, for cheating for 6 months or something. But then the ban got overturned or something like that.
Yeah, I used to play a lot of ESA Park then, and then I used to play against Ins and Ali, both of them. And I really liked like the way how Ins played. Like Ins was like he was definitely not cheater. He was just like above everyone else with his game sense. So I really liked him. And then yeah, we just like picked those two guys. And then actually before Grat, we had a guy who called Goa. I think he was competing as well like lately, not like lately when I was in Australia, I mean.
Right.
And then I think I had the rage with Goa back then. Like Chris told, I was really ragey guy. I used to rage at everything, and then we had the big argument, and then uh, Goa left the team, and then we picked up Gratisfaction. That was the real deal, man.
No offense to Goa, but I feel like that's probably a good thing for you guys as a
Oh
team
yeah,
in the
for
end.
sure. Like Grat was like, I don't know. Back then everything was so different, you know.
Hmm.
Everyone's thinking Grat is bad or something like that, but no, he's so sharp. I think like every pickup was like, oh, stonks, easy money, man. This team is gonna do well.
What do you think would have happened? Like, let's just imagine a world where this team still existed today. You know, if you had all 5 of those players, where do you think you would be? Would you be the best team in ANZ?
I think no matter what, Stitch would go away anyway because he wasn't like CES material player, you know. He was more like a quick player. Even his view model was like in the middle. He had
Right.
gun in the middle, so he's
That's
like
so
looks
weird.
like a quick.
Yep.
Right. And then he's really good with his movement, but his like CS like mechanical skill was not there, you know what I mean? So I would say if we just like change it stage with Dexter as an
I
IGL,
knew you were going to say that.
bam, man.
It literally then
Bam.
starts to just look like exactly what Renegades have at the moment. I mean,
Yeah,
and I've had
yeah.
previous discussions, obviously, with Dexter and with Malta, and they have floated the idea that Alistair, in some world, may have ended up on that Greyhound roster at some point in their history. Obviously, it hasn't happened, but I think he's definitely the caliber of player that in another world could have ended up there and wouldn't have gone necessarily astray. But one more
Yeah, for
question
sure.
on the Corvidae roster before we move on to something else. I want to talk about, you know, the leadership structure within this team, because you were all at the time, you know, very, very sort of new players in the region. I mean, I say new, but like I say new toward the top level. I mean, more so than having been new to CS. But sort of who's like the leader in this team, and how does that all work? Like, are you IGLing still at this point?
Yeah, I was IGL, and I think I was the captain as well. And yeah, just can't it's kind of embarrassed thinking of me IGLing back then, you know, because my knowledge was like so bad. And the worst is my English is like I was the kind of IGL who's like foreigner and sits there and calls, I think it's good time to rush A.
That's good.
Rush B.
Live and learn. Live and
Rush
learn.
A.
To be fair, though, I think a lot of people at that time, right, everyone's knowledge of Counter-Strike back then was a lot lower. Like, if you go and watch some of those games, like even the teams that are winning that kind of tournament, or let's just even move into the discussion about CGPL 2016 finals, which is the one you went with this team and you came, I think, 3rd and 4th. And if you look at that tournament, you look at the teams that won that and the way that they play, you know, you could probably get a team that's like, you know, 5th or 6th in the ANZ region right now, and they would be better than that team that won 4 or 5 years ago, sort of thing. That's how much the scene has leveled up. But let's talk about this event for you and for your team, because the way that I look at this event is as the breakout performance for Corvidae as a roster. I don't think anyone really expected you guys to be 3rd or 4th, particularly against a lot of really strong competition. You know, when we look at the teams that were at this event, you've got Incept, which had players like Malta on it, and they were doing okay. You had Trident, which had Lonsdale and Hats, who at the time, Trident were definitely looking on the up and up, particularly after they had a good performance at that ACL event that you were mentioning. XR5, a team which featured Ferg and Tux. Vox, which had players like Cozzy on it. So you think about a lot of the sort of veterans of the scene, and I guess in some instances, some of those players were still newer, but I've put them in that discussion just because they've gone on to have good careers. But I think, you know, you're looking at the context of the players that you beat and you were able to outperform. The competition was actually quite strong. So what did you guys sort of think about this event? Were you expecting to perform quite as well as you did? Were you excited about how much people started talking about you guys after this event?
I think the event was just like really good experience for everyone in terms of in-game and out-game. I think that was like our first line for I think all 5 player, and then like actual like national line. I mean, and yeah, we actually did really well. I think I don't know what happened. It was really long time ago, but we felt really good. We were just like so proud, and then we had the like, you know, okay, I think we can be actually the good team, like one of the best teams in Australia. Let's just do it. I think I remember that moment we won against Legacy. I think we knocked them out or something. Do we knock them out?
You might have.
Or we came back. from 12-3 or something like that on
No,
Mirage.
Legacy won the actual whole tournament. So
Oh, okay.
you must not have knocked them out, I don't think.
I think we beat him in group stage then, something like that.
Yes, you did. You won 16-14 in the group stage on Mirage.
On Mirage, yeah, we came back that game and from 12-3 or something like that, and that was like huge. I think that was the best moment in like for everyone that time.
Yeah, but even then, you look at some of the other results. You get a 16-8 against Exile 5, which was, Ferg, Peck, Seth, Mizu, Tux. At the time would have been considered... Yeah, it would have been considered a really good team.
God.
16-11
No
against... See, this is what I'm talking about. You're having the exact reaction that I think a lot of people at the event had. I remember casting it and thinking, like, who the fuck are these Corvidae guys? Because you got to remember, like, for the context of the viewer, these names on the Corvidae roster are, like, basically now legends of ANZ CS. Obviously, with the exception of
who did we lose to then in semis?
Well, I think it might have been Alpha Sydney. No, you actually lost to Chiefs, which was Dexter's Chiefs at the time. So Chriso, Dexter, Burn, Destiny, Mungo.
Fucking Snake Dexter, man.
Snake Dexter. But actually, I remember that Chiefs roster was one of the teams that we sort of thought was actually going to win the whole competition. It was basically them or Legacy, really, was the discussion.
Yeah, now I remember. We lost them on Train. I think Train was the final match. We lost, like, Cal did some 1v3 and stuff like that. And yeah, I remember.
16-10. Actually, what's really interesting, and I think what is part of the reason why everyone was so excited about Corvidae was that you 3-0'd the group that you were in. And it did have Legacy. So people were like, oh, if they can beat Legacy, like, maybe they can win the whole thing. Obviously, you come to semifinals and you get banged out by Chiefs. But
oh my God.
Overall,
now
people
I'm
were excited.
So proud, man.
Anyway, here's what might not make you proud. After that event, things kind of go pretty haywire for the Corvidae roster, as I remember. So you guys, I don't know who it was, but from what I can remember, there was some players that were having contract discussions with other orgs, and the org, Corvidae, wasn't really a fan of that. So do you remember anything that happened there? Because quite soon after, I think people started getting removed, or the team just disbanded or something like that.
From my memory, what happened is Ince and Ali left. I think probably like after that tournament, we maybe like struggled a bit, maybe had like some low time in scrims or something like that. So, and then, the team ASDF?
Yep, that was the one that became Chiefs later on.
Was it Lightstep's plan?
Yep, Lightstep's team, yep.
I mean, was it his plan?
To what? Get Alistair and Inns?
I mean, the whole ASDF plan.
Yeah, I think it was Lightstep and Tux were like the key figures in that roster that sort of made it happen.
Snakes, man. Another snakes out there, man. So just like a bunch of snakes snaking each other. So I think everything was fine, and then maybe we had a rough time doing scrim or something like that, and then Ali and Ince is the one who started to leave the team.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And back then I was really hurt because I thought like, we're like really good friends. I even raged at them out the game. Okay, never talk to me again. Okay, bro, we're done.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd love to see the chat logs of
that. I swear I used to hate them. Like, not like hate them, like I'm gonna kill them, but I'm never gonna play with them hate,
Well, in fairness, you did never end up playing with them again, I don't think, from memory.
Yeah, but after a few lines, we just had a few drinks, and I love you, buddy, man. It was all for passion, man.
Fair enough.
Understandable.
Okay.
That's like really understandable, to be honest.
So it's Inns and Alistair's fault that Corvidae died as a roster. Let's just say that. And then what happens?
Sure.
And then what happens to Erkast is you kind of become teamless for a little while. This is a pretty interesting period of your career, I think, right? So we move into the time where you're playing on Athletico, but you're not really part of the team per se. You were always listed as a sub. So what was the deal there? Like, you seem to be subbing in for Chacha at like every single event that they went to, but you weren't part of the team.
So after the Corvidae died, we like I was not planning to play with Stitch anymore, but I was planning to stay with Sean, and then because we were like really tight, and so the thing is, like, I had to leave for a month to Mongolia on my holiday. It was somewhere in July, and then I had to leave for a month to come visit my home and then go back. And then that was like really weird timing because there was some like the season was just starting as well, CGPL or something like that. And then Sean was asked to play for SYF, and then Sean and I like initially was trying to make a team together, another team. Then we were just talking to a bunch of people, but because I was leaving, I told to Sean that, okay, just don't wait for me because season is starting. And then if you're gonna wait for me, you're gonna skip one season. So just go for SYF. And then he agreed. And then I went, and then I came back. And then actually, when I was in Mongolia, like I think Stuart or someone like asked me to sub for Church because he was like graduating his high school, and then he had to focus on his school.
Mm-hmm.
So they told me like, okay, for 3 months you can just sub for him, and then after that I think that's it. It was like just like done deal from the beginning. There was no plan for me to stay. It was just like for Judge because they were also like really good friends with Judge as well. So I really didn't want to replace Judge as well because like they were really tight as well as friends. So
okay, so just to give some context for anyone that's watching and doesn't know the team that we're talking about, this is the Athletico roster, which at the time was actually probably the best team in ANZ. So you've gone from, being a relative unknown in the scene in late 2015, early 2016, to then by September of 2016 joining what was arguably, and in my opinion, was the best team in the region at the time. It was Infrequent, Sonic, Liazz, Wizard, and Chach, but Erkast was replacing Chach at the time. So the first event that you sort of had a lot of success at was EB Expo. Now, this one was one where you came first place. Do you remember much about this event? Because again, I think this was another big one in your career. At least it's like your first big placing at a LAN. You come first place, you're the sub for the team, but the results are good.
I remember the tournament, but I can't remember like what kind of a team we played because that was like long time. But I remember the event. It was EB Expo. It was in Sydney.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember the LAN.
I can jog your memory. You beat One Stop in the grand final, which was Seth, Pex, Mizu, Kyoto, and Chriso. And then there was Legacy and Avant at that event as well, who came third and fourth. I believe this was like the final to an ANZ Champs season or something like that. Like it wasn't a standalone event.
Right. Actually, let me look for it as well.
Either way, like for you to go into this event, it's like a pretty big event if you remember. Like it had a big stage, there was an audience and stuff. Did that sort of impact you at all as far as a player is concerned? Like did it seem like a bigger deal kind of event than some of the previous like CG events that you'd probably been
to? For me, like LAN or online, I had no like difference at all because I get pressure before the game on both of them. Like same feeling, I get like a bit of anxious and pressure, but once the game starts and you get your first frag, now you're in the game, so you just forget everything, forget the circumstance, and you just focus in the game. And that's how I was like from the beginning, so it didn't really feel the difference. But like the some good thing was like, let's say like where you like frag someone really good and the audience go, ooh, that's where you feel the difference. Like you actually like get that more motivation to frag or even play better.
Did you feel like after this event you were kind of part of the team now? Like you come in as a sub obviously, but you performed really well, your team won, so you must feel like now you're kind of almost part of the team and you're sort of welcomed.
Like personally, I really want to stay with these guys because like I knew like they're the best team, but like I had that like gut feeling that like I want to be with Sean as well. Like if I just want to like think about my career, like I want to stay in Athletico, but I had a deal with Sean, so not gonna talk to my boy. So
all right,
that was my feeling.
That comes a little bit later on, right? You do play the rest of 2016 with the Athletico roster, and one thing that I do want to talk about, which I didn't even really remember until I was researching your career, was the Atlanta Asia Minor, which you went to with Athletico. So this was in Kuala Lumpur. Like, I don't even really remember this event at all. So Athletico was the representative from Oceania, and this would have been, was it like your first international event? Obviously.
This is my first international event, yeah.
So what did you think about all of that, right? You're still a sub on the roster. But
this one was like, I had a lot of pressure for some reason. A lot of pressure.
Was that just because first time overseas, sort of international?
Yeah, first time overseas, I was just so excited. I saw the buffet first time. I was like, oh my God, I want to be like, I want to be in an international event the rest of my life, I saw the pool. I was just like, I think back then I was just focused on other stuff like then game. I was in such a good hotel, and then I was just more focused around the environment than CS, and then I just didn't think about CS at all, and that's where I did a lot of mistake, I guess.
So you were like maybe a bit overwhelmed with the situation.
Yeah, I was like really excited, and I had no focus on my CS that time.
Because I remember my first event going overseas, and I had very much the same sort of feeling as you. It's like, wow, is this even real? Like, I'm in a 5-star hotel, I'm coming here to. For me, it was cast a game, but like for you, obviously, it's just to play a game. It's like the same thing. It's like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, I lost my focus, but I remember the event. Yeah, it was a good event.
Okay, so let's just touch on a couple of the matches you played. Obviously, for you, I mean, playing against teams like Tyloo and MVP at the time, this must have been a pretty big deal, right? These are like teams that are some of the best teams in Asia, and you even took MVP at the time to like OT 21-19. You lost that game. You play against them again in the Group A match where you go down 2-1. So the way it must have worked must have been a Swiss format where you ended up playing that elimination match as a best of 3. So look, to be fair, I mean, it's a pretty big deal kind of a thing, even for an Australian team at that time to go and play against teams like Tyloo and MVP. So did you kind of look at these guys as like gods or like impossible to beat or anything like that? Or were you, obviously a player from Mongolia, maybe a little bit less concerned about the Asian teams?
I used to worry about Tyloo and MVP a lot back then because, well, it's just like even before the game, like I didn't have the mentality to win. I just thought, oh, they're so good, so I had no like courage, I guess. So I give them a lot of respect. They used to play more passive and stuff like that because I just think they're so good.
Then you got better and you started beating them all. So that was cool. Obviously, at the Atlanta Major, Athletico, they don't really do too much. They don't get out of groups, which is probably why people like me don't remember it, because it was an event that didn't really do too well for the ANZ teams. Anyway, we'll jump past that and go straight into ANZ Champs Season 2, which was also Season 1 of Zen League. And this is the grand final that was at PAX Australia. So this was, I think, your last event, maybe, with the Athletico roster, or at least the last meaningful event with the Athletico roster. So let's just talk about your results with this team, right? You come first at EB Expo. You attend the Asia Minor, which means you were the best team in that qualifier from Oceania. And then you go and you win Zen League Season 1 as well at PAX Australia. So for you, your first year in Australian Counter-Strike has been absolutely massive. You won 3 tournaments, you're in the best team, even though you are a sub. For you, this must be like, things are going pretty peachy, right?
Yeah, that was like actually really good. I was like, overall, I didn't think about like, oh, I did so good as a person, but like I was just so happy with the experience I gained in my first year. Like I had like cheeky shuffle going on, cheeky heartbreaking going on, and coming back going on, winning going on, international event and stuff. So everything was like, I was so happy with the experience. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Then I have one more question for you about this event in particular. Now, this is the one where infamously, or perhaps famously, the photo was taken that Sonic's holding the trophy on the stage. And then later on, your head was photoshopped onto Erkast. Erkast's head was photoshopped onto Sonic's body. So it looks like you're holding the trophy. What did you think about this whole thing?
That was kind of weird. My first reaction was, oh, did I lose some weight or something? And then I guess, oh, no way, it's not me. And then I compared the other photo. It was Stuart. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I guess it's because of the drama they had between him and PTG. Mm-hmm. I also had drama with PTG as well.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move straight on
Because
then.
we handshake and it's okay.
All right, fair enough. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go past the drama then. And the final question regarding Athletico was: did you kind of get a sense at the time about how these players were going to perform in the future? You know, obviously you were on a team at that time with Liazz, and he's gone to 100 Thieves. So, you know, did you know that he was going to be like one of the best players to come from ANZ Counter-Strike just ever?
Yeah, for sure. Like Liazz is like back then, like I remember first time looking at him, right? It was like the first line I went in Sydney. He was also there as well. And like his posture, like the way he plays CSGO, his posture, you just know that he's a sharp guy, you know, he's a sharp guy. And then I was like, damn, he must be good. And then I looked behind him, he had some weird pink crosshair and then weird resolution, not like 4x3 like other CS players. He would hit just everything different, and then his posture was so odd. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how to explain, but it was just like so odd, his posture. And then you look at him, he's just like so good. He's so calm. Like you tell him do something, he's just gonna like do it no matter what. And he's in a really like tight situation or a hard situation. He's somehow with his movement and individual skills, he's just like survives in the situation and then like gets a frag or something like that. And then I think like back then I just thought, oh, he's gonna be the best in Australia for sure.
If you had to make like an ANZ super team, he would be on it, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump into Team Immunity then. Now, you've already sort of alluded to the fact that you wanted to link up with Gratisfaction again, and you were still only considered a sub for the Athletico roster. So I assume those were the two sort of motivating factors as to why this Immunity roster was put together. Like, I think you actually ended up... the team already existed, right? The Team Immunity roster already existed, and you just joined the roster. So was this always something that you had intended to do, or was it quite a quick thing to decide once you left Athletico?
I didn't like plan to join Immunity, but where they knew that I was a sub in Athletico, and then also Sean was in that team as well. So I think I don't remember who was getting removed. I think it was Destiny, was it? On Gazer?
Destiny and Gazza, I think, retired, quote unquote retired, and you and I think Moey at the time were the ones that replaced him.
Yeah, that's what happened. I think, and then I just had the talk with James. He was the captain back in Immunity back then, and then we just talked a bit, and then I was just actually like so happy that I'm actually belong to somewhere, because that was like just good feeling, you know. Okay, they told me like, okay, Sean told me like blah blah, and then we also watched the game. You're a really sharp player. We want to invite you in our team. And I was like, yeah, now that's a real deal, because you know, Immunity is like, for someone back then, playing for Immunity means a lot, you know, because it's such a historic team. They went to major few times, 1 or 2 times. They went to big events so many times, competed against the tier 1s, so, and they also had the stickers.
So for you, actually playing in that organization was a big deal based on the previous results of, like, for example, Sniper's Team Immunity is what you're saying.
Yeah,
like the legacy of that name.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
Okay.
Because like Immunity, like I like the logo, I like the name, I like the jersey, I like everything. It's just like, you know, when some people rock out with the Immunity like jersey on LAN, you just see them like, damn, those are sharp guys. And they just like walk so proud, you know. Damn, we are Immunity.
All right. So once you've joined Immunity, you know, what are your like future expectations for this roster? Because this is the team that you inevitably led into Greyhound, and then they moved on to Renegades. So when you join this team, is it like your ideal team, or is Erkast, you know, is Snake Erkast starting to, you know, the mind starting to work a little bit? You're thinking like, who do I want to replace here to make into my team? So what's your initial expectation of the roster?
So firstly, Sean and I was so happy that I like play back with Sean, and then like we had a drink, and then we talked like, okay, bro, let's just snake them all, and then, you know, make a super team. I'm just kidding. Okay, so this is what happened. I was so happy that I was with Sean, and then now I really wanted to prove myself and become the best in Australia. So, but back then I was not like snake enough because I was not in control of the team, and I just didn't want to basically I was not in control of everything. I low-key wanted to control everything. Like that's kind of for my personality, I guess. And then we competed some tournament. We played in WSA or something like that in
WCA? Cyber Arena?
WCA. Yeah, don't remember the name.
World
The
Cyber Arena
tournament?
2016
Yeah,
was the first
something
event you
like
went.
that. Yeah, and then that was my second international, and went with Sean and everything, and then we did not bad, I guess, bad but not that bad from our
At
expectation.
WCA, you did not make it out of group.
Okay, that's bad.
Yeah. So I think you beat. Oh, so this is actually an event that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about. I've got it in my notes here. You played against Edward Gaming, which is a team from China, where you went 1-1. It's a really weird format. You played like 2 maps against each team. You go 1-1 against Edward Gaming. You go 0-2 against Tyloo, 1-1 against X Generation X, whatever their name is. And you go 1-1 with Vici. So like some of these results are pretty decent. Like going 1-1 with Vici is pretty good. Edward Gaming is a pretty big org, although the players on that team are not amazing players from the Chinese region. But the only real quote-unquote loss that you had was the one to Tyloo. So some of the results were okay. It just looks bad on the group graphic because you essentially came 4th in the group.
Mm-hmm. Right, I see.
So you played like even an overtime against Tyloo, like Mo, Didi, Fancy, Attacker, and somebody. Like that's pretty decent. Again, at that time in 2016, for teams that are going overseas from ANZ, it's a pretty respectable result.
Yeah, I think yeah, just from a memory, like we did okay, but I guess it's not okay. Like kind of makes sense because we were like playing so close against Tyloo and stuff. So, but I don't think we had any big deal after that tournament because it's just I think we got invited because I think Winter Fox meant to go there, but they were invited as an immunity. So immunity had the invitation,
Right.
like their org had the invitation. That's why we went there. Initially, Winter Fox should be there because like the core was Juicy, Imagine, and who was the third? Can't remember. Basically, all the roster meant to play there. Then we just played there. Okay, let's just get some experience and stuff like that. And then, yeah, we just after that we came back to Australia. I think that's when Zen League and everything started, right?
Yeah, well, there was Zen League, but what I do want to really specifically talk about was that's in December, right? So that's December 2016. You finish off the year, you come around to 2017. And this is where IEM Sydney is obviously announced, right? So you're still with Immunity at this time. And I think it's probably arguable that you're like the 3rd or the 4th best team in Australia at the time, behind maybe Chiefs and Tainted Mind / Athletico, the team that you had just departed. So let's talk about the IEM Sydney qualifier. Did you guys really think about potentially qualifying for IEM Sydney, or did you always sort of go into that with the expectation that you were going to be a semi-finalist, but you probably weren't going to make it to the final?
I would say we wanted to qualify for IEM Sydney because I know we're not the best team, but in any day, if we're on point, we can beat them. So we just had the expectation to win, I guess, and then I guess we didn't make it.
Okay, so it's not a big deal kind of event for you in the end. The fact that you don't qualify was more or less expected. You come 3rd to Tainted Minds. But what's more interesting to me is, did you obviously go to IEM Sydney, or did you watch IEM Sydney and have this sort of moment where you thought, I really want to be on that stage or anything like that? Because you did obviously miss out.
Yeah, I missed out. Chiefs qualified that year, right? Their first year. And then I actually went there with Tim and Sean. Us 3 went there. And then some reason we were with Greyhound, Mr. Greyhound then, with Will.
Right, so is this where you actually met Mr. Greyhound?
Yeah, that was we met Greyhound. Why I keep saying Greyhound? It's we met Will before IEM Sydney.
Oh,
it was in Adelaide in CGPL land.
All right, well, let's talk about that then. I was going to talk about that a little bit later. when we talk about Greyhound itself. Actually, no, let's hold off for that because we still want to keep talking about immunity for a little bit before we'll talk about Mr. Greyhound a little bit later on. If you're interested in jumping forward, there'll be a timestamp down there that you can jump to. So you go to IEM Sydney, you have a good time. I assume you obviously want to go and play at IEM Sydney one day. That's something that's happening in Erkast's mind. Let's talk about the minor that you go to first, though, PGL Krakow Minor, which is the last event that you guys play as immunity. You beat Chiefs 2-1 in the grand final of the qualifier. And now, like, at this point, it's like, oh, you know what? Chiefs were the best team. They qualified for IEM Sydney, but now Team Immunity's beating them. So are you kind of feeling like Immunity's on the rise at this point, now that you've qualified for the minor?
I think that the Disney like helped us to qualify that game a lot because like he had to sub one of our teammates, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
I can't was it James he was subbing?
Yeah, James was subbed out for the qualifier by Destiny, and then Wizard stood in for James at the actual minor itself.
Yeah, that's what happened because I think Destiny was not able to travel, and yeah, like Destiny was like such a sharp player. He helped us to qualify, like not like carried us, but he did some important like frags or important clutches, something like that.
I do remember him being like kind of a big deal in CS back in that time.
Yeah,
you know?
I used to have a lot of respect to him because like when you like look at him playing, he is like actually like really good player as well. Like I would say he's more like he does everything. He can sniper, he can like clutch, he can entry. He has really high. He's like he has really good game sense, like above everyone else in Australia. Like no shit, he was actually
smart
so good
and he was sharp. But
yeah,
he was an interesting fella. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
It's a shame we don't see him playing anymore, obviously, because he was one of the better players from the region. Either way, to talk about the actual minor itself, not only is the result to qualify for the minor really good for Team Immunity, who probably aren't considered even the best team in ANZ going into that qualifier, but then you go to the Asia Minor and you actually come second in your group. You beat the Mongols, which is, obviously your homeboys. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, did you ever really think about that in the context of, I'm a Mongolian player, I'm going up against the Mongols, which is a really big name?
That was
Dobu's Mongols as well, by the way. So your best mate,
that was like
Sogu
one of
Dobu.
the like, they're all sitting here right now.
Tell them how much you shit on them.
That was like really weird feeling as well. Like because like I'm Mongolian, like, and now I'm in China competing against the friends that I used to play together, like in Net Cafe Live, just against each other, just for fun and stuff like that. And now we're like, from Mongolian perspective, it was such a big deal, like, damn, guys, we kind of like, it's kind of interesting, we're competing against each other. And I was representing Australia as well, so it was just kind of weird feeling, like I even posted a picture on my Twitter, like, Itachi, like in Naruto, when Itachi like killed all his Uchiha clan.
I mean, I don't watch Naruto, but sure.
Okay. So
for any of the anime viewers,
like yeah, basically a guy killed his clan.
Okay. So you felt like a bit of betrayal, maybe, like that you were doing.
Yeah. I felt like that, and then
okay.
And also I wanted to win as well because, like, why not? It's good to win your friends.
Yeah. So what happened was you beat them 16-13 in your first match, and then you go on to lose to Tyloo 16-4, which means that you're in a 1-1 position. You need a two wins or 2 losses to go further or go out. You play again against the Mongols, and you beat them 2-0, and you qualify through for the playoffs. And this is where things get really interesting, because never would I have expected that an ANZ team would be able to go on to beat not only the Mongols, who at the time, okay, to be fair, this wasn't peak Mongols, but they did have Machine Gun, and everyone was really hyped about Machine Gun. Then you go and you play against Flash Gaming in the upper bracket of the playoffs, and you beat them 2-0 as well. So, like, am I like maybe underselling how good this Team Immunity roster was, or perhaps overselling how good the Asian teams were? Because this seems like an overperformance in the context of how the Australian teams had performed internationally prior to and even after that event.
I think we're just like overselling the Asian teams, to be honest. And just like, I think there was just something with Tyloo, like they were just like in the head of everyone else, like in Asia and Australia, like they were just so good. Everyone just thought they're so good. They're so good. They're so sharp, and they just push through smoke, and then they do some random stuff. And then, Yeah, I think they were just in the head, but it's just like when some team is in your head, it's never you can never perform like 100%. It's always gonna be like you're always gonna overthink. Okay, if they might push the smoke and you're just staring at the smoke for 20 seconds,
Mhm.
I mean, before they're just like doing nothing, you know.
So
So
so you just sort of played your own game and you went in and you basically were better than Flash, essentially, which I do want to give the context for the viewers. This is actually a pretty sick team, right? It has Summer Attacker, 2 players that are currently on Tyloo, the best team in Asia. Kaze, who is arguably the best AWPer in Asia right now, although I'm sure you'll tell me it's someone from Mongolia. Lovey and Kasa as well, who are pretty decent Chinese players too. So that Flash Gaming roster is not that bad. But this
yeah,
plucky team from ANZ, the one that goes on to become Greyhound, you're starting to maybe see a bit of the reason where they're starting to really improve and they're starting to look good and they're starting to get those international results. So you beat Flash in this upper bracket and then you go on and face Renegades in the upper bracket final. So we've got 2 ANZ teams in the upper bracket final and everyone's starting to think, oh, maybe we might get 2 teams to actually qualify for the major from ANZ. But you do lose to Renegades, which, look, to be fair, is probably expected. They were far and away the best team in the region before they left, and obviously they still are. Technically, if they were to play at any Asia Minors, probably still the favourites. But what did you think about going up against Renegades at this time? Because I think this might have been the first time that you played against Renegades. Was it like a big deal for the team to play against them and even take a map?
it was a big deal. Like I was like so happy we played against them. You just know the Renegades were so good back then, you know. They just like went to overseas and they were just going to the big events and you just like all you do is just go on HLTV and like look at them playing against tier ones. So like you have like I used to like treat them as like tier one. Even now, you know, even now in 100 days I respect them. So yeah, it was just such a big deal. Just like, you know, I just like had no pressure to personally, I had no pressure to lose because like if you lose, we just lose to Renegades. It's not a big deal because it was expected. So I was just like there to just get more experience. So it was a good experience.
So then obviously you get knocked down into the lower bracket and you have to face Tyloo. Now, do you sort of consider yourself maybe a little bit lucky with the way that the bracket worked out? Because if you remember, Flash actually was able to beat Renegades in the groups, which meant that Renegades ended up being the second place team in Group A, going against Tyloo, the first place team from your group. So essentially, the way that the bracket really should have worked out based on the grand final would have been Tyloo and Renegades on opposite sides of the bracket. And it would have been you against Tyloo on one side of the bracket and Renegades versus Flash on the other side of the bracket, or something. No, I think it was Renegades versus you on one side of the bracket, and then Flash versus Tyloo. Either way, you dodge Tyloo in the upper bracket is what I'm trying to get at. But then you have to face them in the lower bracket. So do you think that you would have gotten knocked out a little earlier had you actually not had that sort of favorable seeding? That
I think maybe in lower bracket we could have beat Flash Gaming as well. So
it would
maybe
have still been the same result.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
What did you think about going up against Tyloo, though, in this lower bracket final? Were they the big bad monster, you know?
Yeah, they was just still in my head, to be honest. Even like before going to a tournament, like, okay, like Tyloo is... I never had the feeling like they were so sharp, but I just had the feeling that they were so annoying to play against, you know? They just like does everything random, so careful that, careful this. And then it just like gets in your head. Like I think that was just like something in my head. I guess for everyone that time except Renegades, whoever was in Australia, when you face Taylor, like you just think, oh, they're so random.
Yeah,
like that was even the conversation I had a lot. That was the like only conversation I used to have with players in Australia. Like just when you talk Taylor, we just say, oh, they're so random, you know. Why do this, that, and then why?
And of course, at this time, Bentet's on that roster as well, so you've got the best player in Asia to deal with as well, and he's sort of like an absolute beast at the time. So definitely a scary roster, and you go down 0-2. But nonetheless, I think a third place finish for a team that's not Renegades at an Asian minor at that time is probably one of the best results that an ANZ team has had internationally in a competition like this. So you must be feeling pretty good after that. But this is where things get interesting.
So good.
This is where things get interesting, right, Erk? Because this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Greyhound. Obviously, you've had some discussions with Will earlier on. Let's talk about this first, right? Where you sort of say you met Will at, what was it, the Adelaide AEM or CG LAN or something like that?
CGPL. It was CGPL. So Our friend, Mr. Greyhound, he went to Adelaide by himself, alone, from Melbourne, just to meet with some players, right? And apparently, I got so lucky because he was outside the CGPL, standing there alone, and he was just like, "Hey, hey, my name is Will. Hey, my name is Will. Hey, my name is Will." And I think everyone was just kind of ignoring him.
Everyone's like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, everyone just ignoring him, and then I just lost the game. I went out, just quick Siggy, and then went out there and I saw Will, and he's like, I didn't know him, right? And he's like, "Hey, my name is Will." I was like, "Hey, my name is Eric." And then I was like, I was about to have a Siggy, and he's like, "Oh, you might have a dart?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then we were just smoking, and then we had a conversation, right? That's how we like started our
So
like conversation.
how did that conversation go? Was it like Will saying, "Hey, I'm here. I'm looking for a CS team," or was he just sort of trying to put the feelers out?
He was just like introducing. Yeah, he expressed himself that he wanted an org, and like back then there was so many people like Will, like no shit, like there was just like so many people like some cat gaming or some shit, and then just goes like, "Hey, I want to build this org. I can give you logo. I can blah 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 blah." Like it was just not interesting at all. So
But the thing is, it's really weird though, right? Because you're in Team Immunity, which has had, I will grant it, quite a bit of drama surrounding the organization in the past, not only in CS, but in other titles. But it is still one of like the premier orgs, at least at the time, within the ANZ region, to then go from Immunity to Greyhound. So what is, like, you're talking about all these other orgs that might have come and approached you, but what's the difference between Will and the Greyhound organization and some of the other ones that you obviously passed over? And even Immunity.
Will was like was ready to give us salary, right? And Immunity, we had no salary. We just had some skiers coming once a year, I guess. It was just like so rare as well. So, and we really had no direct like communication with Immunity, right? That was really hard for us. I can't remember the organ name, Tony or something.
Tony, yeah.
Tony. Like it was just so hard for us because we I had like shit PC for so long, right? Just like playing like 75 hertz monitor and shit, and then like I was just like asking them like give me money. Oh, actually I got monitor from Minty. Sorry about that. But I had some issue with my PC as well, like a lot of time, and like I kind of felt that I was like so whingy as well because like I looked like I was so whingy because all I talk is like, "Please get me a PC, please get me a PC," and then it's like I let's say I play really bad. I was just actually blaming my PC, and then all the time it was true, but it was kind of whingy from them. I don't think they kind of ignored me.
Okay, so it seems like Mr. Greyhound and obviously the organization were like a bit of a guardian angel, almost not so much a guardian angel, I guess, but they were the one that could sort of fulfill all of Erkast's desires. Everything that Immunity couldn't provide, Will could provide. And was this like a motivating factor for you as to why you joined?
That's what he said when we met in Adelaide. I also like, that's what we said when we were in Adelaide. So I still had some bit of trust issue. Anyone can say something, in person, and then everything started in IEM Sydney. Actually, that's what we were about to discuss before. And went to IEM Sydney, and Will, first thing he did was he helped Sean to fly to Sydney from New Zealand to see the event, and then he was also there as well with his brother or something. Yeah, and then that's where he showed like he's trustworthy. We met him, and it was actually like legit. All he was talking was legit, and then he wanted to play. He wanted us to play in a minor as a Greyhound as well. That's
which
what
you didn't end up doing. You played as Immunity.
End up doing because like Sean was like telling us to play underground because we don't need to play Immunity and stuff. But I said, okay, let's just finish with Immunity because like it's like we qualified as Immunity done there. Like let's just end up without
with Immunity at that time.
I can't remember. I don't think we had contract.
Okay. And then, like, theoretically, you could have just played as Greyhound but you had like this moral, ethical code kind of thing.
Yeah, I always have that moral thing going. It's just like, let's just end up without any drama. You know, we just played this event with immunity, and then after that, everything's finished.
Except when it comes to kicking your friends.
Ah.
We'll talk about that Snake Erkast in a little bit. I do want to touch on one brief thing before we sort of start talking about some of the roster changes that happened when you joined Greyhound. But was there like this overarching plan when you were talking to Will? Like, was it, I want the best team in ANZ, you know, I want to enable you guys to hit the #1 level, or was it just like, I want a team?
Yeah, like with Will, like Will wanted the best team as well, but he never had the pressure. Like he was just like, you know, I just need a guy who I can trust, and I think it just clicked for both of us, you know, Sean and me and him. I also wanted to best team, but like I said before, I wanted to have a control of my team. So Will was like just like he was behind me, so like I got that like, you know, confidence to build a team, to change roster and stuff like that. So yep. So everything clicked, I guess.
So then you go into World Cyber Arena 2017, which is the first event you guys play as Greyhound. Now the roster as it currently stands is Burn, Gratisfaction, Moey, Erkast, and Prakm. Teams that have the players rather that have come across from Team Immunity. So you play this event, and I think it's actually fair to say that this was a pretty disappointing result, particularly after what happened at the Asia Minor. You guys came in 6th place. Chiefs ended up winning this event. Boot comes 2nd. Signature from Thailand 3rd. Mongols in 4th. Even Rekka, which is Rekka minus Bentet, by the way, comes in 5th ahead of Greyhound. And the only teams you beat are NSPR Gaming. I don't even know who that is. Let me have a quick look. It's one of the Thai teams, which is okay. And 7642, which is another one of the Thai teams as well. And MVP. So, like, is this a pretty disappointing result? Obviously, it's the first time you're playing under the Greyhound banner. It's not exactly the flying start that you would have wanted, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that was really disappointing. Like back then, like Chiefs was our main rival, and then you look at them, they were winning everything, even like international event, they're winning. So I was like kind of disappointed, but you know, give more motivation to rise.
Okay, well, what was the reason for this poor performance?
Moey, for sure. No, I'm just kidding.
Snake Erkast. We're going to talk about it.
No. I was like we had the feeling that like the team had some overall like had some like, you know, we had no system, and then we had like I was also like not the best IGL at the time as well, because like I was quite ragey and stuff like that.
Okay, this is a kind of a key point then. At what point do you become the IGL of Immunity? Because I assume when you join immediately, you're not the IGL?
I think as soon as James left, I become the IGL.
Why are you the IGL as opposed to Moey, right? Because even at this point, Moey is very much a veteran of the scene. It would make sense for him to be...
Maybe it was Moey IGL?
The obvious choice?
I actually can remember like during that specific period, like from transition from Immunity Greyhound, I can't remember who was IGL. It was either Moey or me, like for sure, yeah.
All right, so you have this poor result, like, and now let's talk about Moey, right? You knew this was coming. This is part of, I think, I don't actually know where the Snake Erkast meme sort of originates from, but I assume it's part of this. So Moey, you know, he was a big part of the Immunity roster even before you joined, and then as soon as you guys make it into Greyhound, he's basically removed from the team, and you pick up Dexter. So talk me through how all of this sort of plays out. Like, is it a team decision? Is it your decision? Is it Will's decision? Why is Moey removed? And because I remember there being a bit of a shitstorm after this.
I used to like talk about like the roster with Sean a lot of time, because like we were just there forever together, and then but it was like always my plan
to remove Moey.
Yeah. Because like when we had to practice, he had the new baby as well, and then he basically had no time to invest in CS. Like I knew he had used to work really hard, and you just like play in a really late time. Like he would sleep late, and then he would go to work really early as well, and then he would have to take care of his kid as well. So it's really understandable. At that same time, like it's not fair for the other guys to, you know, just like have like small amount of practice because of Moey, you know. So it's like it was just fair for us to just like, you know, remove Moey from the roster.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is this the point where it sort of becomes Erkast's team? Because I know now people sort of associate Greyhound and the formation of this roster quite a lot with you. Is this the point now where like you become the leader figure in the team?
I think even before Moey, I was IGLing and I was like just like tight with Will, and I told him like everything, you know, okay, in the future, like, you know, we're probably gonna do that if it's gonna continue or stuff like that. And then he was just like, yeah, go for it, yeah, go for it.
So it was largely your decision to remove Moey. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Dexter then, right? He's the one that replaces Moey. Was this also your decision? Like to pick up Dexter as opposed to someone else?
He was just the best option at the time. Like Moey, you have experienced player, and you can't replace Moey within just like young up and coming talent. Like there's have to be someone with the background, and Dexter was, I think, playing for Funky Monkeys back then.
Yep.
And then we like I don't know who started, but like I think we just like agreed with the decision of Dexter. But I just had the fear that everyone's saying just, oh, he's gonna ruin your team, you know. He's so ragey. He's like, you know, so he was like sounded like me, to be honest.
Was he a bit of a rager at the time? Like, did he come into the team and be a rager?
I don't know where that conversation started, but you know,
he's a rager,
but it's like it's a reasonable rage, so it was fair for me. You know what I mean?
I think like in all of my interactions with Dexter, it's always like he's always been a critical person. Let's say that much, right? He's quite happy to point out like things that you're doing wrong or incorrectly or something that maybe he doesn't necessarily agree with, which I think a lot of people probably would tend to dance around or say perhaps in a nicer way. So I can see a world where people would sort of construe that as being a negative person or a bit of a rager. Either way, I think on paper you look at that and it turns out to be a great decision. But
Dexter is the, you know, fallen angel, you know.
Okay.
I was like, ooh, man. But I had like actually no expectation about Chris. I knew he was a sharp player, but I never knew he had that inside him, you know. Like, man, such a gift from Angel, man.
But I
want to kiss his forehead now.
All right. Well, I don't know where that's come from, but anyway. So, okay, is this, like, I just want to tie this little Dexter Moey thing up. And is this where the Snake Erkast meme sort of originated from?
The Snake Erkast come from Chris and me. I call Chris Snake and he calls me back Snake.
But why do you call each other Snake? Because of this situation?
Because, I don't know, I just like to make fun of him, Snake, because I don't think he appreciates it, and then that's just funny. And then he knows like I'm the Snake, but he's not actually a Snake, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I just like to call him Snake, and then he calls me Snake. So we call each other Snake, Snake, Snake. So that's from where Snake has come from.
But are you the Snake because you're the one that makes all of the roster moves?
I made the most of the roster moves,
Yeah, so that's the reason for that meme.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about another roster move then, before we get too far into the discussion about the actual results you had with this team. Now, Prakm is replaced by Dickstacy. Now, this is another very, very quick change within Grayhound, straight after the creation of the roster, you know, only a couple of months. So was there always the intention to remove Prakm, at least in your mind as well?
Like, we had no attention, what did you say? Temptation?
Temptation or intention?
Intention, right. Like, we had no intention to remove Prakm because he had like, he was like really sharp. Like, his aim was like super good. I would compare his aim with like even Liazz, right? He had that Liazz kind of aim, but he always had them like Corvidae issue, which was like annoying for the team. Let's say it was just had that confidence issue, you know, like he would say, okay guys, I think I'm gonna lose it, or you know, if you want to replace me, you can replace me, something like that. He would say that really often. And I think just he didn't see like the good side of inside him, and then that's kind of sad as a CS career, because if he just had that confidence, like he would just like fucking ruin everyone. To be honest, he was like really, really sharp, and I would say he's really underrated player as well.
So do you think because of it? Did he have enough chances in Grayhound? Because he wasn't on the team for that long. Like, would he have developed into a better player had you given him, say, another 6 months, for example?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So why did
we were like we were really tight with Prakm as well, like Will, Sean, and I with him, like we were like really close friends as well. Like even now we still talk with them as well. Like we're that close just for the short period of time. So he definitely had that chance to go longer.
Okay. But he was replaced by Dickstacy. So where did you kind of get Dickstacy from? Because I remember at the time he was playing in Dark-Sided, which I think then became Athletico. And they were kind of an up-and-coming team. But he was never like the major star of that roster. There weren't that many people talking about him, I don't think, at the time. Because obviously he didn't have that whole brand about him either, just at that point. So why did you pick up Dickstacy?
So like my idea was like, okay, if Prakm is getting removed, we're gonna replace him with another sharpshooter. And then back then, like if you know how Oli came out, he was just like he came out from rank S. He qualified from rank S, and then he was just like smashing heads. Like it was just headshot machine. He was like headshot machine back then, and it was kind of suspicious as well. Like the guy with random name came out of nowhere, and then he's just playing rankings and just killing everyone. It was I even like experienced that headshot. It was like just running around. He was not thinking anything, and then he was just giving headshot to people. And well, I think I came out of idea of Oli, but we'll also say I'm the one who came out here with Oli. We were kind
So
of
you
like,
both think
you know,
that it was your decision?
yeah, but I don't know which one is true. But I think I'll give credit to Will because maybe he's right.
Was there anyone else that could have potentially joined the team instead of Dickstacy?
Nah.
So it was just him.
Yeah, maybe Badge back then.
Okay.
Oh no, Badge wasn't. Yeah, maybe Badge. Someone from Dark Side, like someone young and sharpshooter.
I think from memory there was like Badger, Techstar, who I imagine you probably didn't want to pick up because of the VAC thing.
Yeah.
Who else was on that roster? I don't even remember.
Sync.
Sync. M-Swag was a sub for them at some point in time as well.
Flix.
Yeah, Flix was the other one. That's right. So yeah, none of those guys was really necessarily part of the equation.
I think Sync was like quite on and off kind of a guy. He would play sometimes and then he would just have a break, and and then we just like why not? For me, I thought like why not just like a new guy, like completely new guy. Yeah.
All right, well, let's move then into the first tournament you have after a lot of these roster changes have, which is the Rog Masters APAC event in the Philippines. And this is the first one you go to, I believe, with Dickstacy, and it's actually one where you're kind of expected to win or at least be in top 2. Now, you do make it to top 2. You lose to 5 Power in the grand final. So it seems like you and Dobu seem to always meet up against each other, and Cabal's in that 5 Power roster at the time as well. But the main takeaway is that if you make top 2 at this event, you qualify for the global finals, which ended up being in Malaysia. So was that the goal from the beginning? Was always just to make it to the final? Because when I spoke to Dexter about this, he sort of said like once you guys got into the final, at least from his perspective, you sort of felt like, oh well, we've done it, right? We've got to the final. That's all we need to do. Then you go on to lose that final, and he sort of really spoke about the regret that he felt after maybe not putting in as much into that grand final. So was it something that you felt as well, like watching that winner's ceremony with 5 Power obviously lifting the trophy or the check or whatever it was?
Yeah, I think I actually agree with Chris as well. Like the initial goal was just to qualify for the global one, and after like losing the final, it kind of sucks, and like you still qualify, but like ending an event losing is like so different comparing to ending an event winning. So it's like you kind of lose the vibe,
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty sad. So we could have tried even better, but I think we tried, but at the same time we really didn't try as well. Like we just tried without passion, I guess. Yeah.
You can sometimes tell when a team doesn't think that a particular match is important because they just like, I've seen it a lot of times where I think a team should win, or I'm like, normally you would see a team come back from this, but they don't. They just sort of be like, like you might go down like 14-10 and normally you'd think, Greyhound should be able to like dig deep and come back from this, but then you just lose 2 rounds or whatever. Something like that. So maybe that was the situation for you where it was like, well, if we lose, it's not that big of a deal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you do qualify, obviously, for the global final, which we'll talk about as well in December here in 2017. And this was one where you had great success and then great failure, I would say, right? In the group stage, you end up actually winning your group. And this is a pretty big deal, again, to see an ANZ team performing this well against international results. Tyloo being one of the teams and Vega Squadron another. So Vega Squadron, obviously, an international team coming through from Russia and Ukraine and that kind of area, and then everyone knows Tyloo, right? So you top your group, which means you go straight through to the semi-final. So let's talk first about this group stage, right? It's a weird sort of a group stage where you play like best of twos, but you 2-0 Vega, you 2-0 Tyloo. So is this like a big turnaround? Obviously, after going through the Philippines, losing to 5-power, you come out and smash arguably the best team in China and then Vega Squadron as well.
For me, like that event was like just like eye opener for me. Like, oh, okay, I think we can actually like start to win everything. We can be the top team. Like I even thought like the best team in Asia as well because we just do Tyloo, and that's the event where I actually saw like Chris's like
potential,
how good Chris is, because we were just playing Mirage and then he was just defending the A side. And he had that like silence the M4. It's so hard to defend A side close range with silence the M4 as a CT. And I just remember like few rounds he was just smashing people like two or three of them like when they were executing A from default on A side. And then the way he was just coming, the way he was entering, it was just like classic Chris like nowadays, right? But back then it was the first time I saw like potentially in our team with Chris. I would say like I was exclude him because he was like such a big pickup for us as a team. And yeah, like I had that faith and everything was like looked like promising from that time.
Yeah,
that was like such a crucial like turning point of our team, that event.
Okay, so you do win the group, which importantly puts you on the opposite side of the bracket to Gambit, who I think everyone kind of knew was going to win that event, right? Gambit was far and away the best team at that competition. Yep. So if you could dodge them, you could theoretically make it to the final, given that you've already beaten Tyloo, which is probably one of the other teams that people were looking at. So Tyloo goes through, they beat Splice in the quarterfinal. You obviously get the auto seed into the semi-final, and then you have to face Tyloo again. But for some reason, this time it goes wrong, right? It's the best of 3, but you end up losing 2-1. So do you want to talk me through this? You win the first map, 16-12.
We win the first map. Second map, Cobblestone, 14-9 up. Fucking Bondic, going through drop every round, 4v5, lose round, another chance, 14-10, lose the drop, A-call, 14-11, lose the drop. He was just Bondic, man.
Mm-hmm. So Bondic was having this massive sort of tournament?
Yeah, he was just having the massive tournament. Like in Cobble, like the drop area is like so annoying to hold as a city. Also, like if you lose, and he was just like also. So he was just getting entering in drop, to be honest.
So
I would say.
I actually, now that we're talking about it, kind of recall at that event that the crowd in Malaysia was very much on the side of Tyloo. There was no cheers or anything like that for Greyhound, and there was a lot for Tyloo. So did that impact you guys mentally as well while all of these like results were happening? You're up 14-9, but Tyloo's making this big comeback, and you feel like the crowd is against you?
Yeah, definitely felt that, to be honest, yeah. It was just kind of annoying,
I also seem to recall someone saying something about the crowd like cheering when Tyloo was looking through a smoke at a player or anything like that. Do you remember that, or is that something that
I don't remember that specific part, but I remember like they were kind of like giving me tilt, like
So you
tilt. Not
only were you tilted by what's happening in the game, but you're a little bit tilted by the crowd. Is it like a mental boom, so to speak, for the team, for the roster during this Cobblestone game?
Maybe, yeah. But
and then, like, obviously you go into Inferno. Like, did you feel like you could win on Inferno, or was the team out of it at that point?
I think the team, I think we were just out of it on Inferno. Like, we had that, like momentum. We were just like, if we had the momentum, we probably like went, like keep going. But we were just like had no momentum going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go on from that event, you end up losing to Tyloo, and you don't make it through to the grand final. And I assume, like, was that, you talk about how big of an importance this event had for you during the group stages, having good results, but was that equally as impactful, but on the negative side when you lost that game?
Yep.
Yeah, so it was pretty bad, like, I guess, for Greyhound.
It was bad
Does it
losing.
put you in like a bad spot, or was it kind of like
It
whatever?
didn't put us in a bad spot. It was just like it was sad losing the game because like they came back. But like if you want to look at the bigger picture, we just had an Oli. He's a like younger player, and then it's like we just like uh it's like every time we go change a player, it's a new team, you know. So it's like experience, and then with the new with the new roster, we just like had a good run. So I know we lost to Tai Lu. It's pretty sad, but like we could have win them if we like were prepared better. But you can't do anything at that point because everything's finished. It's like now you just have to go back and then fix everything and then come back stronger. So it was like sad losing, but it was as an overall event, it was the good. Like I said before, it was the turning point for us as a confidence. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, but then we talk about the last event of this of 2017, or actually the first event of 2018, I should say. Obviously, Rog Masters was in December. You have your Christmas holidays. Early in 2018, every year early is IEM Katowice. So we're talking about the Katowice qualifier for IEM 2018, and this was one of the last like major international qualifiers I think that the Greyhound roster actually failed to qualify for. So you come third place and you lose to Order 2-1 in the semi-finals. Is this like again similar to the Tai Lu loss where it's like, I mean, it didn't seem like a result that you should lose, right? At this time, it seems like Greyhound's probably the best team. So what's happening there?
I think I was calling that event, and that was the problem.
So why are you calling as opposed to Dexter at that point?
I don't know why. I don't know the reason why I was calling, but it was just like between Chris and him, like calling it back and forth. But I definitely remember like the Katowice qualifier I was calling, and yeah, I think fucked it up.
Okay, so you don't take too much stock out of that result though, I imagine, or are you starting to? Because very quickly after this time is where Burn is replaced. So I want to kind of get a gauge of like how the team is feeling about Burn and how the roster's sort of progressing. Are we thinking about making a roster change? There's been a couple of pretty rough results, I guess it's fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
Even at CAC, for example, right, where you went and played, I think, against MVP. I didn't intend to really talk too much about that because it's kind of a minor tournament, but if there's some impact there, we can sort of touch on it.
Well, I think, the Katowice was definitely like my last time I was calling, like my last event I'm calling. And then after that, Chris just came with a complete new system. It was just like, he was starting fixing everything, and then he was like giving a more planned strategies, like more of a tactical strategies, and then I think that's gonna benefit us a lot.
All right, let's talk about Burn then, and Malta, of course, as a result. So the first thing I want to ask you is, and in my interview with Dexter, when I sort of was talking about all of these roster changes, I had just assumed that Dexter was in on a lot of the conversations that were being had. Obviously, he's the IGL of the team. You would assume that he would be the player that would know the roster changes that are happening prior to them. But the way he tells it is that Erkast and Will come down one day at Rog Masters or at some event and say, "Hey, Dexter, we have a surprise for you or a present for you. We're replacing Burn." So, and this was not the only instance, by the way. The same thing he said about Prakm. He had no idea that was coming. So why is Erkast and Will making roster changes without talking to their IGL?
Well, I don't know. I guess that's where Snakest come from.
Okay.
With Cal, right? It was like after the CAC, the minor event, we were just talked the 4th team. Overall, I don't think we just like fit with him in outside the game. You know what I mean? Like in game, he was like perfect pistol player, entry fragger, and everything. But like outside the game, we just didn't click with each other. We didn't have the vibe going on. So it's just like something we felt as a core. Not he's the core, I guess. Like,
but the 4 outside of Burn, I guess.
The 4 outside the Burn. Yeah, we just like had no vibe outside the game. So it was just like we talked about it for a long time, sometimes you just talk shit about each other, and then you're like, we're just not clicking with Cal and stuff, but he's a good player in everything, blah blah. And then it's just like for a team, like the team environment is the most important thing. If you want to progress, if you're just like lacking in like outside the game experience, it's just so hard to improve together. It just can't be in game, you know.
Yeah, and that's
So
something you got from Malta, wasn't it?
yeah, and then we just like I talked with Sean and talked with Will, and then we were just like talking for a while, and then yeah, okay, let's do it. I
So
think that's the
are you like a little bit of a committee per se at that time in
yeah,
Greyhound? It was
yeah.
like you, Will, and Grat are like the ones that are making
I
a
will
lot of the
like
team
initiate the
decisions?
conversation. I will just bring the idea and then talk with two of them, and they will like tell their perspective, and they will tell me if they disagree or agree, and then we just come out with a conclusion. Like
So
I'm the one who starts the
you start the
talk.
conversation. But do you
Yep.
do you sort of see it as your team, like, or is it Will's team? Like, because I kind of get the sense that people think that you created Greyhound, like you, not that you created the org or anything like that, but you were
Yeah.
the driving force behind a lot of the roster changes and the team that ended up going on to be Renegades.
Yeah, I would say. I guess like I just like have the ideas, you know.
Mhm.
I just initiate everything, but I never like do the decide
You
decisions, you
just don't
know.
want to take any credit. Trying to be
No,
humble.
I don't wanna take credit because we actually did have a conversation a lot of time. It's
Okay.
just like I would take a credit because I initiated every conversation. Like I would say, oh, how about that player? How about that player? How about that player? But like decision was all made by the team
Okay.
except Chris.
Yeah, which is funny because he's the IGL. Anyway, all right. So you sort of obviously know that you're going to get rid of Burn, but then how do you sort of reach out to Malta? Have you sort of played with him or talked to him before much? Like, is he already a mate? You know, because the way that Malta tells it is he's just won CGPL with Chiefs, so things are probably going pretty well. And then he gets
Yeah.
this text message from Erkast saying, "Do you want to join Greyhound?"
Um, well, like with Liam, right? Like he's such a cool guy outside the game. He's cool in game as well, but outside the game, he's a funny guy. He has a really good social skills,
Yep.
so he's a funny guy. So yeah, I think that just like I really like that part of him. Like Sean and me, we used to go out with Liam after the events all the time, and then like talk about CS
Mm.
life and everything. And it just seemed like we kind of need that kind of a guy who just like
Was a
has a
good
social
guy.
skill.
Yeah.
He's a good guy, has some good like vibe outside the game. So like I really like that attitude from him.
Because famously, the Greyhound roster, became like the mates team, and it seemed like that was really once Malta joined the team, that's where that sort of was then particularly reinforced. And we'll actually very briefly then talk about what will be the final topic here for part one this episode. Obviously, one half of what will come later on. But the one that I want to end on is the gaming house, right? So you very soon after you pick up Malta, join together in this gaming house. So first thing I want to touch on is, as part of the gaming house or as part of the Greyhound deal, was like this ever discussed early on with Will that you could potentially move into a gaming house at some point?
Yeah, it was his plan from the beginning. He said I'm gonna like buy a house, and then we're just all gonna move in. That's gonna be our gaming house and everything. Yeah, he was his that was his plan from the beginning. So yeah, it was
So
coming
was
on.
that a big selling point for you to join Greyhound as well? Like, were you keen on a gaming house?
Yeah, for sure. Like as a student, like paying rent is like kind of nightmare every time because
Yeah.
2 weeks and your landowner's like, what's up, mate? And it's like you have to pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
So for
Okay.
me, that was a big deal. And also, I had no experience living in a house before, so that was also a good experience as well.
Was that quite
It
a
was all
contributing factor then to some of the roster changes because you would have had in your mind like, I might have to live with these guys?
I never thought about that
Okay.
because like during the events you just kind of forgot about like the house, but once the house came, we are like, oh yeah, actually like it's good to have mates, because we're all living together and stuff. Yeah.
So what was it like from your perspective? Because obviously were you in Sydney at that time? You were studying in Sydney?
Yeah.
Which would mean you would have to then move to Melbourne. So how did that work with you, like university-wise? Was that kind of throwing all of that off
Uh,
kilter?
My school had a campus in Melbourne as well,
I
so
see.
just like it was kind of easy. Like, can I like change to move to Melbourne? And they say yes, and then okay, done.
All right. And what about the
It
rest
was
of the
kind of
team?
easy.
Did the rest of the team sort of want to move to Melbourne, or was there anyone that wasn't that keen on moving?
I think everyone like wanted to move. Sean was also in Sydney at that time. I can't remember where he lived, but he lived in a like weird place from a memory. He
Yeah, I
lived in a
can't
really
remember that actually. I might
because
have to talk to him
I
about it.
went to his place. I didn't like it at all because it was kind of creepy,
Okay.
creepy. He was living with a creepy guy in a creepy room. He was like kind of creepy, man. He was like the house was creepy. The only good side is he had in the end. That's why he
Right.
forced it to move there. And yeah,
So you saved Gratisfaction from the creepy house in Sydney. Or Will
Will
did,
did.
I guess.
Yeah.
All right, but the intention then around this house, like once you were sort of dead set on this house, was like this was the first CS gaming house in Australia, and actually Avant I think has one now, but by and large there had been gaming houses in League of Legends, but never in Counter-Strike. So did you guys kind of see it as a big deal sort of thing? Because I think the community and outside viewers sort of thought that this was a big deal and part of
It was
the reason
definitely
the
a big deal
success.
as well. Like gaming house allows you to like grow as a team like so much faster because like before the gaming house, let's say you have an event, right? You're gonna like go to an event, finish the event, and you're gonna go back home to your normal life and meet each other and then come to teams. Oh, guys, that was such a good weekend, blah, blah. But Greyhound was just like gaming house was such a different experience because
Mhm.
you travel together, you come back together, it's always together. And then like every moment, right? Every small moment you would able to talk CS. Like let's say you're eating lunch, you talk CS. You eat dinner, you talk CS. And then you just walk to Woolies, you talk CS. It's like it just gives you so much room to grow up as a team. And then I think that was just like that's where it all just began. We just like grew up from the gaming house so fast, and think
Okay.
so it was such a good investment from Will as well for his team.
Okay, final thing to touch on then, right? Before the gaming house, you're probably considered the best team in ANZ. But after the gaming house, you're far and away the best team in it. Like, it's not even a question, right? Prior, it was kind of like 50-50. Some events you were losing. Do you put it down to the gaming house, or is it just the fact that you had now finally sat on, like, the good roster as well? Like, or is it just all these contributing factors?
The biggest factor is Goose roster.
Okay.
Like we had that team vibe going on, and we actually had everything we needed. Like we had the good IGL, we had the sniper, we had the rifles,
Mhm.
we had the clutch guy, we had everything, and then it was just like everything clicked, I think.
All right. Well, we're going to leave it there then for part 1 of In Retrospect with Erkast. There will be a part 2, and it's going to feature quite a lot of interesting discussion, particularly around, the time where Greyhound started to really become the best team in the region, attending majors for the first time, when you obviously, unfortunately, weren't able to get your visa and had to depart the roster, and in turn, how you created August and how you joined Tiger and to where you are now. So that's what's all coming up in part 2. This has been Erkast for In Retrospect part 1, and I hope to see you in part 2.
Goodbye.